after a very long split, 7 weeks of summer split here at the ESLOL second division. All the teams have battled it out, and until the end, it wasn't sure who we would be watching tonight. As we headed into the playoffs, ladies and gentlemen, we will see the final moments of this summer split. And for that, tonight, I will have by my side none other than Frastana, but not only him, we'll have Geeky as well with us tonight. Welcome, guys.
Hello!
Hello.
Yeah, it took ages, 7 weeks, you said. 7 weeks
7 weeks.
That
7
means
weeks, and until week 5. Week 5 we only had one contestant locked in, the Rift Sloths, with their unbeaten split. Week 6 we've had Fullclear, which joined them, and week 7 until the very last match last Friday, it was not decided yet who would be third and fourth seed. So it was a very, very intense split through and through, with teams being tied left and right, and in the end you can see it, Rift Sloths were unbeaten on their throne, sitting on it for the whole split, followed by Fullclear Esports not too far behind them. And then on Friday it was decided Germagang and Dynasty came in. Germagang, which had a very rough start into the split, they actually lost the first few weeks, and then they slowly rose up like the true dragon they are, while Dynasty, they also had a rough start, but in the end were able to live up to their name. Next, Pertinax, both at 6-8, were not able to go through into playoffs, so we'll be seeing them next split at the ESLOL second division. And down in the 7th and 8th spot, we've had Aurora, which had a very strong start, just like Daybreak, but were not able to live up to it and survive for the day, as they're headed towards relegation along Once Upon a Team, which, once upon a time, you could have said they would not get a win in this split. However, they were able to still beat those odds and take 3 wins home. So I can't wait to see how far they can go for the next split.
Yeah, and I think one of the most insane endings of the split was that if Dynasty would have lost, then we would have Pertinax in the playoffs, I assume. So it's just a 3-way tie, and both the head-to-head score, Pertinax from like the looming relegation qualifier, whatever, would placed into playoffs, which would be so wonderful, but in the end Dynasty won it, so definitely some sort of an expected outcome. I mean, Dynasty was last split in playoffs as well, and just from the perspective of the org, they definitely wanted to get into playoffs, so the roster looked like really strong, and then of course in the end they did it, but it was really close. And one last thing, I mean, it's so beautiful to see Fullclear and Germagang in the playoffs, just because both came from the amateur circuit. And I think that's one of the most like beautiful things about the league, that they were in the 3 and now almost could get into the 1. So I mean, that's quite a story.
Yeah, and I think especially for Fullclear, they're going strong because they're entering at the 2nd seed, and maybe we can take a look at the bracket as it is built with those 4 teams. You can see tonight we'll be seeing Rift Sloths playing against Fullclear Esports. It's a juggernaut matchup. The winner goes immediately towards final, while the second one has a second chance to get back to finals through the semi-finals. Matches will be best of 5, meaning that teams will have the chance to adapt over time and overcome their enemies eventually. And in 2 days after today, Thursday, we'll be seeing Seed 3 versus Seed 4, Germagang versus Dynasty. The winner thereof will be going to semi-finals. However, the loser is eliminated from the brackets, still ending in the 4th position for the 2nd division summer split.
That's correct.
And
Nice.
with that, we can maybe talk a bit about what's up for tonight. Rift Sloths versus Fullclear Esports, the 2 top teams of the summer split here at the 2nd division of the Elite Series League of Legends. Match should be starting in 15 minutes more or less, but before you get to that, we can maybe get a bit more intimate with those 2 teams, as we've prepared a bit of a statistical gathering up for you guys. Rift Sloths head-to-head versus Fullclear Esports. Both teams very strong throughout the split, with Sloths doing the shortest game on their last match day as well, and playing the longest game of the split in a very first match as well. It was 46 minutes, I believe, versus Pertinax Esports. They had kind of a rough start going into the league in that sense, still won the games, but it's very interesting. You see the average game time still low, but more or less it's higher than Fullclear Esports. It's not super high. It is higher due to that, and it's very interesting because if you look at their game times at the start of the split and at the end, they steadily climbed down. Like, they steadily ended games faster.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I remember this 50-minute game against Pertinax. It was match day number 1. It was week number 1, and Pertinax almost won it. But then the Electro checks couldn't backdoor and stuff. Like, it was really a crazy game. And I think there was even a second 50-minute game with the Rift loss. So that's the reason why Fullclear has a little bit shorter games. But also, if you look at the KDAs and if you look at the KDAs later on each of those players, of course the Rift loss KDAs, for example, look way better because they never lost a game, right? So nobody of them could really had a bad KDA because they just played perfect games almost. So that's the reason why those numbers look that good, just because they won everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And, well, Iki, you haven't been following the league for that long, but you've seen both teams play. Do you think that from what you've seen that time you casted, that those stats add up more or less to what you've seen?
I mean, as you said, I'm not quite as long into the league, so I am not as experienced with the players as I would like to be. Yet still, I have seen the Rift Sloths play, and I have to admit that was kind of clean. So both teams, I think today we will have some sweaty games. I think it will be very tense, and I hope to see some good League of Legends.
Yeah, I think we're in for that, as both teams are still very strong. There was time to prepare over the course of a whole split to see how you might go against that team over time. And maybe it's time to take a look at their players more in particular. And I'd say we'll start with the top laner of Rift Sloths and Fullclear, Lex versus Festier. Two very strong top players. Festier, also known as Loslunio at the start of the split, very well known for his Kled pick. I mean, played it very often. His favorite pick. And Lex, well-known player for the Rift Sloths, has been with them for quite a while. He himself did manage a lot of Jax games over the course of the split, and we can see that both players are rather strong. Yes, Lex has a higher KDA, yes, Lex has a higher CS per minute, but we cannot forget the Rift Sloths had longer games on average as well, and meanwhile, Loslunio does have the higher kill participation within his team, which of course is also not a stat to be scoffed at. 64% as a top laner is not too bad, at least that's what I think. What's your opinion on that, Verstana?
Yeah, and I think something about this comes down to the Kled pick, just because you are the main engage, you are always in the team fights. So with that, you are the main reason why your team maybe gets kills and assists, so that's the reason why his kill participation is a little bit higher. Especially because Lex goes for those split push plays all the time. He's like the one threat you always need to defend on the sideline. That's the reason why he kinda is a little bit lower than, even though his teams usually stomps, he is usually even a little bit weak side. Most attention comes down to the bot lane, so of course he misses a lot of kills there if the team just plays around the Drakes and around the bot lane.
Absolutely. Both top laners already a very strong start for both teams in my opinion. But it just keeps on getting better as we add players to the team. Let's go over to a very important position, of course, in League of Legends, the jungler. The one player that goes all over the map to help his teammates. Rift Sloths are champion in that position by Shredded, while Fullclear Esports have Gallop. And we once again have someone with a sort of infamous pick on the sides of Fullclear, Gallop's Mundo, which was, I believe, either banned or picked at the start of the split, and usually they had a very strong run with that Mundo. kind of off-meta pick, of course, in the jungle, and was very useful for Galop. And we can see still very high kill participation on both sides, albeit shredded with a very high one. 68% is really, really high. And of course, he has champions that do tend to get into fights. You can see the Maokai, the Sejuani, the Wukong with all their AoE engage potential to go all in, while Galop doesn't have that much thereof. I mean, you have the Mundo that does last long in a team fight but doesn't really initiate it, and Rek'Sai, which all very long worked more as a single target picker. Anything to add, Frustana, on both junglers here for this first matchup?
Yeah, I think that Shredded is definitely like one of the key players of Rift Sloths. He always goes for those tanks. I mean, we saw it, the half of all of those games are on Maokai and a lot of Sejuani games. And that's even though Shredded in solo queue, for example, is a Kindred main. He just likes to invade, he just likes those aggressive picks. But in this team, he goes on tank duty and he just goes for those solid ganks and is always like the one engage option that they have together with Grayson. So I really look forward to it if they maybe cooked up a little some spice within the jungle, but otherwise they can just always just first pick Maokai, for example, and are pretty good to go on it. And of course, Galop. Probably we will see some Mundo bans, probably some Hikarim bans as well. And with that, we might see the Rek'Sai or the Volibear again from him.
Yes, absolutely. Going over to the middle of the team, talking about middle lane. Both teams are also championed by very strong player. It is Bukan for the Rift Sloths and Mere for Fullclear Esports, which has just an almost insane CS per minute of 8.16. They are almost tied in kill participation, while still Bukan very strong KDA, a recurring theme for the Rift Sloths players to just have a very strong one. You can see both do have the same most played champion, Victor. We've seen quite a lot of that champion overall, especially from those two mid laners who are always a great asset for their team. Now, other picks always on the table as well. And yeah, Stana, do you have anything to add to that matchup?
No, I think they are pretty similar in style. I think that especially in this summer split, Bukan became like this control mage heavy player like we saw with Victor. Even though like last split, those Jaces and the Yones, for example, were all over the place. So with Sloths kinda adapted a little bit of their style with Bukan in their mid lane, but still like he is one of the most solid mid laners we have in the league. And like you saw in the stats, like he is one focal point of this team with like this huge kill participation. He's just always there. He always brings damage to the table, and he even tries to invade together with Shredded with his lane prayer and stuff. So Bukan just a phenomenal player, and yeah, it will be a tough match for Nemera to beat him.
Yeah, absolutely, and I mean, mid lane always a very central lane, quite literally in the Summoner's Rift, can have a very big impact on the game, but maybe not as big, some would say, as the one that is coming up. Bottom lane, or usually known as AD carries. Next up are Ardafla versus Nomad from Fullclear Esports, and yeah, Stana, I'll just let you get to that.
Yeah, I mean, Adapter definitely the main carry of the team. You can see it with the KDA, with the CS. I mean, he just is such a perfect ADC. He knows his lane very well. Creason just is like the perfect fit on support together with him. And he is the lane who gets played around, like so many bot lane ganks, like the Drake control and stuff. But also, and I think that's a really important point, Nomad, especially with the Aphelios, and at the start of the split with Kog'Maw Milio, for example, he is also like the main carry of this team. And if he struggles in lane or if he gets beaten, then it looks really, really sad for Fullclear. But he is definitely a player to play around. Nomad is definitely the key player for Fullclear, and they need to win this bot lane 2v2.
Definitely. I have to admit, I've seen both players play. Both of them actually stood really out to me because I'm an AD carry main myself, so my heart just sets ablaze as soon as I see a good AD carry. And I have to admit, Nomads Aphelios is dangerous, and I think this will be 100% pick or ban.
Yeah, I believe so as well. And I mean, his like the games played on the Aphelios, like that percentage is just completely insane. Is already well for him as a player, for his team a green flag, but for the Rift Sloths should be a red flag. Be very careful about that pick, as you've said, Geiki. But every 80 carry alone is nothing if not for their support. So let's get to the heroes of the team, so to say. Grizzon for the Rift Sloths and Sky Ownage for Fullclear Esports. Frashtana, what can you tell me about those two supports?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely are on two different parts of the support spectrum. We have the full engaged support player, Grizzon, against like more or less the Enchanter support main of Sky Ownage. We see it in the champion pool, and especially like this Nautilus, the stats speak for themselves. It was always picked for Grizzon. He does such a great job on it. He's like the second main engage together with Shredded, and it works so well that he just always plays the Nautilus, sometimes the Alistair, and then we saw like one Ash game or something. So, but he told us in 2 interviews that they are cooking something, so we might see something else. But it's just an insane support player with so much like experience from former splits with events, EU Masters and stuff on his sleeve. So definitely maybe one of the most experienced player we have in the league with Crescent.
Yes, absolutely. Always very strong, always a pillar for his team as well. A very, very solid player who does not falter to just anything. And one very important part, of course, up to now the split was played on patches 13.10, 11, and 13. But today we will not playing on any of this because we will be playing on 13.14. So that is quite a few changes. Maybe Frashtana, do you have anything to say about the changes we might be seeing in terms maybe of picks for champions?
Yeah, I mean, we will still probably see like the same stuff like we saw in the last couple of weeks. I think there will not be too many changes. I mean, it's not like Frankie would play and he still plays LeBlanc and Nico, right? So I think the meta is not really changing too much, probably. But I'm really excited to see both teams on it.
What's your take on that, Geiki?
I gotta say, I agree with Frashtana, to be honest. What I've seen is that finally the statics nerf came, which is something I do really appreciate, because all the builds we've seen resulted into steady CDs. No matter what you played AD, you played AP. Sometimes I've seen it on even support champions where you are like, why would you do that? Why would you buy statics on support? Yet still, it was something which was completely viable due to the fact that statics did a huge amount of damage and brought a lot to the wave clear, which is important for mid lane especially, but also for bot lane when it comes to getting a pressure out when it gets to, for example, objectives like the dragon. And this is something I really enjoy, and I hope today we can see a little bit more build variety. The meta itself, I think, didn't change really much, so we might see again, especially on bot lane, if Nautilus isn't banned, he will be picked. And I also think we might see a Milio again, together with Aphelios maybe.
Yes. So the bot lane definitely to watch out for both teams. You mentioned Milio, maybe with Aphelios, Nautilus, champions that on both sides you have players being very strong and very comfortable with. Yes. But one thing we've not talked too much about in terms of champions picked banned is maybe the mid lane, because I think there's a very interesting situation going on there. Both mid laners having as most picked champions Victor. Victor, ban or first pick, or maybe completely forgotten here? What do you think, Frashtana?
No, I think from Mimere, it's definitely like a blind pick. It's definitely like maybe most comfort for him. So we might see it a lot of Fullclear. On the flip side, I think Bukan has a much deeper champion pool, so they are not like too much on Victor for their game. Mm-hmm. But I think we will see Victor at least once or twice in this whole series, rather on Fullclear side. but I mean, definitely there could be a chance that we see it on for Bukan as well, especially, and like that could be a one trick for Rift Sloths, that they just pick it away because it's such a good pick for Nemera that they would just don't want to let him give him this champion, but they don't want to ban it either, so they just want to secure it for themselves.
All right. Well, with that, we are headed into Champ Select, dear viewers. Rift Sloths versus Fullclear Esports. First game of tonight. First ban is Rumble. And this reminds me of a bit of an interaction I've seen on Twitter about the Rumble ban. And I will backtrack from there and note that Fullclear Esports did announce getting a coach for these playoffs.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll be seeing some new stuff coming in from them. I think now is definitely the time for any team to cook up some new stuff, and I can't wait to see what they've got in store for us.
Yeah, and just from those bans already, we see that Rift Sloths definitely maybe underestimates like Gallop as a player, because at the moment Mundo's open, the Kled is open, and of course also the Hikarum is open. So they might have cooked something in the jungle matchup to just counter that, or they will at least ban one of those junglers out, because Gallop is a really strong jungle player, so at the moment he is totally free on every single champion. And on the flip side, Fullclear went for 2 ADC bans against Adafla.
I mean, you definitely don't want Ardefla to get ahead because of the way the bot lane impacts the game currently. It's hilarious how much impact a lane can have on the game at this patch, just because how strong AD carries are.
Yeah, definitely. And with Rift Sloths having the first pick, it would be the opportunity for them to pick an AD carry out of his very strong find. They take the opportunity, they pick up a field user, the AD carry can be very strong, and with that they indirectly ban it for Nomad. Their answer to that is going to be the Kai'Sa, another champion I believe that was used by Nomad quite a few times. And here we have the Rek'Sai, we've seen it in the statistics for Gallop.
Yeah, one of the stronger junglers definitely for him, but also, and just because of the patch, he got nerfed a little bit at least. Just some stats got nerfed there, but especially if you just look at his solo queue right now, he played a lot of Rek'Sai, and so far in solo queue 100% win rate. So at least Gallop definitely knows how to play it and how to snowball with it. And there's Lissandra, and that's especially really cool to see, because she got a huge buffs on this patch. Didn't expect to see her that early, but definitely a great blind pick, usually against those assassin type champions like the Rek'Sai, like the Kai'Sa, who just jump in. You can instantly CC them. Passive got buffed a lot by the Lissandra, so it's a great pickup. And the Kindred, and that's so cool to see, because some buffs came through to Kindred, and I mean Shredded is like the Kindred main, and so far we never saw it. They never banned it out, they never picked it, but now in the playoffs, Shredded can first time Kindred in the Elite Series.
I mean, you gotta get some luck at some point with your picks.
Definitely. And now here we have the victor. Neither banned or picked up by the Rift Sloths. It is Mary that's gonna get the Robot Man. And with that, the first picking rotation is already done, and we're headed into the second banning rotation. Now we have on both sides mid, AD carry and junglers, leaving supports and top laners open. We know that we have some very strong players on both sides, so very key bans. You already start off with the Jax, Lexus most played champion. We might see another support ban for Fullclear Esports against Grizzon as well.
Yeah, and one way to play it is now just to ban out 2 good matchups for your top laner, then blind pick top lane, because you could just take the best matchup you get, and then just to blind pick to counter pick support, just because then you have probably a winning bot lane. And like I said, Nomad is like one of the key players to play around for Fullclear, as well as Adafla is for Rift. So we really need to get a good bot lane matchup, and with that, just giving Sky Ownage the opportunity to give like a really good support matchup to maybe snowball it into your favor is probably the way to go. So I would expect a blind pick top laner here, and like Renekton would fit that role really perfectly. He's one of the best blind pickable top laners you can play on this patch. There are some bad matchups, but I don't think that Lex will play Quinn, for example, so it's a good pickup here for Fullclear.
Yeah, Quinn is most likely not to be picked. What I would like to see is a tank actually on top lane, because I think that's something the Rift Sloths might like a bit. Just for a really good front line, especially if you go for a Zoe pick, where you definitely need someone to protect her. But they went against it.
Well, we have the Blitzcrank for Grizzon, and I believe he did play the Blitzcrank on their last game, and he did some completely insane hooks on there. I mean, we knew it from seeing his Nautilus games, but with that Blitzcrank, he is just as much of a threat, and they can be so aggressive on that bot lane, and I believe indeed Xante would maybe round it off beautifully. You have a very tanky top laner that can dish out as well, rounding up Riftsloth's comp.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, it's maybe lacking a little bit of engage, just because usually you had the Nautilus, you had the Alistar, you had Shredded on Maokai or Sachani. So with Lysandra, Blitzcrank hooks, maybe Kazante, you have ways to engage, but it's definitely not as much as they usually have. So a little change of playstyle there from Rift Sloths. And in the end, it's the Leona for Scaronage against the Blitzcrank, so it's just a target you don't want to hook, basically. And she can always try to get in front of Kaiser, for example, just to block those hooks. But also, normally you want to play Kaiser with the Alistar, with Nautilus, with Leona, just a heavy CC support. And that's the reason why they took the Leona here.
Yeah, with Leona being, I think, the best pick actually in this case. You have something to defend the Kai'Sa, which is, as you've mentioned before, a key role or a key champion within the team comp of FC, as well as Victor, who is a unbelievable strong damage hyper carry. What I would love to see actually is some juicy early bot lane action, because Leona enables that so well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, already at level 2, so much aggressiveness that she can dish out. And I am interested to see how Scaronage does play it, because over the course of the split, we haven't seen him much on such champions. I mean, we've seen it before with the stats. It's mostly enchanters that he plays. And of course here, very aggressive bot lane champion is a very good answer in my opinion in general against Grizzon as a player, because you cannot just target Leona as you've said. So well, definitely some juicy action there, I think, especially with junglers like a Rek'Sai and a Kindred, which can already gank and wants to gank actually early on, especially for the Kindred to get the marks up, to get those stacks. And most importantly, it's Shredded playing on his main solo queue champion, so I think he's gonna be going all in with that already.
I mean, that could be, maybe not, but it could be a huge risk in my opinion, just because they never like played it in competitive, at least not from what we've seen. And like if you, I mean, they stick to their own guns for like 14 games in a row. They won with the same team comp 14 games in a row, and now in playoffs against the second place team, they decide to, yeah, just screw it, just pick Kindred, just pick no engage at all. I mean, that could work, but I think definitely that it's a little bit risky, at least, because that's nothing we saw too much, at least, from them. And especially like Lex not being on a like pure split pushing powerhouse like Jax, like Gwen, hurts a little bit, because he is such a talented top laner in my opinion, that I would rather like to see him on something like that. But they needed a tank, they needed a front line, so it was a good decision to pick the Kazante for him.
Yeah, sometimes you have to go for something you probably don't want to. I also think that I'd love to see some split push action, especially with the impact split pushing has on the game. When you get to the late game, for example, where you have the situation, you're trying to get a tower on bot lane, maybe T2, you are T3 top lane, you just send your top laner back on his lane, push everything, and you'll be fine, just because he itself is such a huge threat that you have to go against that. And if your top laner is in a strong position, you have to get maybe more or 2 people more just to get him away, which is something which is extremely powerful. And that's why I also love split pushing top laners, actually.
Yeah, and I feel Stan, as mentioned, we've seen quite a lot of it coming from this with Sloths especially. It's kind of Lex's trademark. Indeed, it was already the case previous split. He'd play a lot of split pushing top laners. Can be so impactful for a game. Like, if you're not too careful, indeed, they can go into the base and you have a kind of a backdoor situation that can backfire very quickly. And I think we're going to see quite a lot of it, not only maybe on sides of top, but our mid laners. We have two mid laners which can clear waves really fast, which like to go on the sideline to get it quickly done. Maybe rotate around the map, have some impact there. So yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of action in this game at least.
Yeah, and I think let's talk about the Kindred just a little bit more, because normally Shredded definitely goes for those all-ins, or for those invades. I mean, he did it with Maokai every single game, he did it with Sejuani every single game. So I believe that he will go for invades on Kindred, on his signature champion. And with that, we want to see some lane power. It will be difficult to get lane power against the Renekton, but especially in the early game before Victor gets his laser upgrade, Lissandra should have lane power, and bot lane could be flippy for both sides. So could be hard to go for those invades.
And we'll see how that goes for the Rift Sloths or Fullclear Esports, who will be taking the first win of the playoffs. We'll see that as we're headed into the Summoner's Rift, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, let's see what both teams want to do in the early game, especially like with Blitzcrank. You could go for invades, but it's kind of obvious that you would go for invades, so that's the reason why we see a 5-man stack so far from Fullclear. And with that, at the moment, Rift will just go for the standard Kara. And maybe with some early wards, you could try to assume where Gallop wants to move, or where Shredded, for example, wants to path. But we don't see those early wards. So at the moment, both junglers are pretty in the dark about what the enemy jungler wants to do in this game.
Yes, and whereof minions are spawning, we have Shredded starting on his top side, which could be a very good indicator of him going in for already early aggression on the bot lane. Gallop is going to start on his top side as well, so maybe we'll have a confrontation between both junglers in the bot side river. Of course, Shredded will have this awkwardness at the start of maybe not having their mark where he wants it. We have a hook on the bot lane, but I don't think much is going to go from that.
Yep, just a sneaky little hook. But at the moment, 100% hook hit rate from Creason, so he takes those hooks from last game and just places them correctly again. And at the moment, I mean, I'm pretty stoked about that Shredded is not invading. He didn't even start red buff. Like, normally he starts red buff and goes invading, but this time on Kindred, on the champion where you can invade, he doesn't. But probably it's too predictable. It's a little bit too predictable to go for an invade here. That's the reason why he just juked them with not doing it. I don't know. But in the end, they just will both go to the bot side, because it's the most important lane for both sides.
The big mind games you're predicting here, holy cow.
Always. It's important.
Maybe he juked it, maybe he didn't. Maybe he just didn't think of it. We never know.
Yeah, now imagine how it goes into players' minds here. Because it's the best of 5. It's kind of an endurance you need to have going in, and especially a more like moral endurance, because you need to stay at the top of your game, and you can't be just thrown off. And like, if you start off with, oh, is he in my mind?
Oh, look at that. Oh, that could have been that could have been something.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising that both junglers pathed bot lane, but both top laners just play the heck out of the lane. I mean, in such a lane matchup where both just keep fighting, a gank would help so much. But I mean, just go for bot lane. Top lane is irrelevant. So I mean, in the end, nothing happened top lane, but it was a little bit risky. And but they both knew that jungler is bot side, so they could just go for those trades.
Absolutely, and here we can see Shredded a bit ahead in his clear is able to take that.
Look
Scuttle
at
gonna
that.
go up. In the meantime, Gallop is rotating towards the bot lane, unbeknownst to Rift's bot lane. We have 2 flashes going out, and the flash knock up Gallop onto Ardaflo, who gets really low already, but ignited. Gallop has to retreat, and the situation turns a bit around as Ardaflo is able to dish out some damage on Fullclear's bot lane.
Yeah, that was not the best communication from Fullclear. I think you could definitely see that the bot lane of Fullclear wanted to go out, but then flash from Gallop. And now they're getting top lane. So then, but then the flash from Gallop came, the knock-up came, and then they wanted to go in. But I think if they communicated a little bit well, then they might get the first blood there. But with that, they couldn't go for it.
Yeah, and with that situation diffused, we have TP top lane.
There could have been something coming up.
We can see a lot of aggression already left and right, but nothing too, like, let's say, final yet for either teams.
No, but that's not too bad. I mean, if you just look at the scaling department, both teams have a wonderful scaling. Of course, Kaiser and Victor scale pretty well, and then on the flip side, both ADCs scale really well as well. And with that, they don't need to win the early game too much.
Oh, look at that. There's someone coming right up, Shredded on his way to top lane. We might see a juicy gank up here. And there he is, dashing onto its prey. And the Hunter may take his kill down. And that's the first blood for the Rift Sloths. Shredded taking on the first 400 gold.
Yeah, wonderfully played by him. And that's exactly what I want to see from Shredded. It is his iconic Kindred. And of course, he knows how much damage he has. Of course, he knows that he can tower dive this just because he plays it so many times on solo queue. And it was wonderful. It's first time Kindred, its first plot for the series. It couldn't have been better for him.
And the gank was perfectly executed. I mean, with Flex coming in with the shield at the last second here, it got really close for Shredded for a minute to not get return killed, but in the end, masterful display of skill. In the meantime, we've had a bit of a situation starting off at Drake, but nothing too conclusive, and we're back into the same old good old situation of the game. Gallop taking his Gromp, and taking with that away 1 mark for Shredded. We'll have to wait for it to respawn.
And then there's some trouble around the Dragon Pit. We saw that Gallop kind of started it, but then they came to Khan and he interrupted him. I mean, it was a good cross-map attempt because we saw Shredded on the top side.
That has been beautifully. Shredded just collapsing onto it. And that may be actually the first strike of the game.
Yeah, they could at least try to go for it, because Kindred is still alive, and if they would knew that Gallop is on the top side, it could have been the first strike, but they don't decide to go for it, but it's the second kill for Shredded. I mean, just look at this Kindred, he plays it so perfectly right now, and that's the reason why normally it is fierce, but after every single team saw that he just plays tanks, nobody respected it, and now in the playoffs, he strikes first.
And look, almost here on the bot lane, and as mentioned earlier, here we have the first strike that should be going to the Rift Sloths, as Shredded does initiate it while Gallop is on the top side.
Yeah, and this track goes to Rift, so that's totally fine. And a good start for them as well. But I mean, except the jungle, like everything is fine for Fullclear. And even the jungle, I mean, he holds his own in terms of farm. But this Kindred could be really dangerous.
Yeah, in the mid lane, a bit of a situation, but nothing much springs out of it. Yeah, and it's at the hand that situation kind of fuses. Fastia is there. Last Lunia dies at the hands of Shredded. And Fullclear does not go too far in as they back up. In the meantime, on the bot lane, it keeps on going. Otterflower gets a lot of damage in from Skyonage and Nomad. And with that, Ignite is starting to get really low and will not be able to escape this death.
And that's really good for Nomad, especially because he's like the key player for Fullclear to really carry such a team in the end. And with this first kill, oh, the flash.
Now we see Mihir getting pushed really hard. Maybe he can... No, he cannot get the return on Bekan. Gallop falling right up, trying to save his mid laner, which is not happening because Shredded is absolutely dealing tons of damage. Now Gallop getting the kill on Shredded. Bekan now trying to kind of make some damage reduction. I don't know, but in the end, all he has to do is get out.
Yeah, what a good fight there from both sides, actually. I mean, they traded 1-for-1, but especially a big shutdown coming down for Gallop. So he got a lot of gold there. And Rek'Sai with kills, and especially with like those shutdown money, can be really, really strong, especially against all those squishy targets. I mean, you can pretty much 1v1 all of them, except probably Lex. But even though, I mean, if he is feeded enough, he can probably 1v1 Lex as well. So it's really good for Fullclear to get two of the most important members of the team running and going.
Yeah, but we gotta be careful, because Shredded already has his Trinity Force, which is something you might want to respect.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just gonna say the exact same. I mean, he is already very strong into the game. 4-1, well off with the smites to get ahead. But Gallop also like keeping pace with Sloths on there and staying into the game as well as can, taking the opportunities that are there, and yeah, just overall doing a great job on both sides.
And I want to talk about Nemera. Ooh.
Made a hook on the mid lane, a lot of damage falling on the mid lane of Fullclear, and that's a kill that goes to Grizzon, unfortunately, for the rest of his teammates. And on the top lane situation also kind of escalating, but it's a classic top lane fight. In the end, we use the ultis, we flex a lot, but nothing much happens.
Yeah, now we're getting maybe into a little fight on top lane, but it might result into a little skirmish.
Who knows? Who knows? In the end, nothing happens. But, I mean, Grizzon is in the head of those guys. I mean, he expected this little sidestep coming out from Nemera in the mid lane. I mean, I wish we would have a replay for that, because, I mean, he just he hooked underneath Nemera because he knew he will sidestep it. And it's so crazy. It's actually so crazy what Grizzon is doing in this game.
Yeah, but as we've mentioned before in the pre-show, he is the most experienced player, the most experienced support player currently. So, even with him having the EO Masters experience, I don't think that there is something... There might be coming something up. Oh, never mind.
Yeah. Sometimes there's a fight, sometimes there isn't. And like Drake is spawning in 50 seconds, and now with the Herald, they will get the first turret on the top lane, and they will just snowball like they always do right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is really strong. They got the platings there, and first turret with that Herald, they might even get a second charge out of it, seeing how that push goes. And they're starting to, like, shifting gears upwards. 2k gold lead already for the ESLOL first Drake, and they just keep the pace going. Shredded on his main is able to definitely put a lot of pressure on Fullclear Esports across the whole map.
And now we're getting inside into a tower dive. Nomad taking the kill on Defle. Oh, look at that hook! Grizzon being able to get Gallop under the tower. Now being Half-Life. That's unfortunate that Defle died there. And Gallop now being able to counter-invade.
I mean, he had both summoner spells up, but I mean, in such a 3v1 dive, it's probably better to not flash there or to not waste those resources. But in the end, it's a lot of platings for Nomad, and especially like a second kill for him. And like I said, he is the main carry of his team, and he needs to have a good game for them to really shine. And with those 2 kills, with those platings, Nomad is set it well enough in this game to maybe be the carry his team needs to win this first one.
Absolutely. I do like the grit of Fullclear Esports. However, taking that Drake right on the Rift Sloth's nose before they kind of expected it. I mean, you saw Shredded going towards it, but no, they were already on it, already done it. And with that, they are able to stay well into the game. Not let Rift Sloths get anything for free. They're able to get back at them really beautifully. Well played.
Definitely. And now with this second Drake, they denied Rift Sloths kind of like the Dragon win condition, so 5 more minutes until a soul is spawned. And with that, a lot more time to scale for both sides, of course. Both sides scale really well. And one thing I really want to say about Nemero right now, he is behind in like deaths. I mean, he died 3 times, but still is ahead in farm. Like, even though he dies a lot, he still kind of out farms Bukan, who isn't dying. And with that, it's just a really good thing from him that he still stays ahead on farm, so his little like dying streak isn't like too bad.
Yeah, no, absolutely, because farm, of course, always very important as well. Can be the main source of revenue, and Fullclear Esports is definitely banking a lot of it. Their main carry Nomad is at 150 CS already, that's 10 per minute. Really going strong, 2-0, so definitely not everything is lost for Fullclear as they go in the middle lane for the Rift Sloths. However, Nomad getting really low there, has to be careful, watches out. Sky Onage is the first to fall at the hands of Buchanan, that's the second kill going to the Rift Sloths as Nomad is taken down. Lex keeps the push going on to Galop, who gets between turrets and to safety for now at least.
In the end, it looked worse like it was in the end. I mean, just 2 kills, even though this teamfight was really explosive, and I thought they will ace them there, apparently, but no, just 2 kills, especially after Galop survived the engage on him. But still, 2 kills. That's really, really well played by Rift, and it was the first 5v5 team fight, and they just won it.
Yeah, which results into the first mid lane turret being taken, which is not the thing you would like to have.
I mean, definitely, this is already rough in terms of turrets for Fullclear, because top and mid tier 1s are already taken down. That opens up the match so much around that top side for the Rift Sloths. Next target most probably the bot lane turret, and in that sense they have the top laners going over there to see who can push it in. Of course, Fullclear has taken bot lane turret tier 1, which is already good for them, sets them ahead in there.
Oh, that could result actually into a death of Grizzin. I think the vision game wasn't really on point.
No, he just face checked it, and in the end, Sky Onage there with a clean little kill. Probably as it was an ignite kill, you wouldn't really like to get him a kill, but I mean, in the end, it's just 1 kill more for the whole team. And like, one thing I want to mention is that this Blitzcrank item build goes for probably, is it like the Everfrost, right? So he goes for some AP, he goes for some more CC, which is quite funny that he goes for this kind of build.
Yeah, definitely, but I mean, more CC is always welcome, especially against a team where their main piece, AD carry, is something that is so elusive as a Kai'Sa. I mean, with the invisibility, the jumping around can be so hard to pin down, and just adding CC could be very beneficial to that end.
It also maximizes the damage output with Blitzcrank, and it's not his priority to deal damage. I think it's still a nice addition.
Yeah, and it's always a good follow-up onto the hook, for example, because you instantly get the snare, or it's even a good follow-up onto his knock-up, for example. So it's just a lot of CC, and especially they can just CC chain it together with like the other Everfrost on Lissandra, for example. So
it's just a big jump scare. I mean you get hooked, Half-Life.
Absolutely.
That's just the big jump scare. Now we
Well,
see a
it's not a
Hex
fitting
Slash.
stick.
There's a hook flying, who does not find its target. It's still, Dragon is right up, so we might see a fight around that, because both teams definitely want the Dragons, especially Chemtrack, who is okay. Lex going in, now taking Skyonage into his own team, which is insane. Festia trying to follow up, just gets taken out, and now we see the double kill by Lex into the kill for Adefla, getting Gallop, which is highly needed. He needed that. Adefla is currently, I think, not the right state, actually.
I mean, one really important and funny thing, or Mary probably gets catched there.
Yeah, look at that. Getting catched. Now Grizzn trying to hold him where he is. Yet still, Meret dealing so much damage, even at this state of the game. Yet still, Bukan able to dodge this Victor laser and secure the kill for himself.
Yeah, still a double kill for him, so he did make the 4-4-4-0 play a little bit better. And I mean, in the end, Sloths even got a trick. But like one funny thing in Champions Select I talked about was that Leona isn't the target you want to hook into your team. They did it, they won a team fight, so never mind, I guess.
You want to hook her into the team. Hooked into the team.
Yeah, but I mean, they won the team fight and they're just too far ahead, so it's totally fine to hook the tank, because you have too much damage anyway to instantly burst Leona down.
Yes, especially with Shredded. I don't know, Metis, but you have seen that, right? I haven't been the only one who just saw how much damage Shredded just did.
Yeah, I mean, and look at his items. He's already got that black cleaver, so for a still early game kind of Leona that is not so tanky yet, he just shreds, fitting to his name, right through it. And I guess it still works out. You gotta take the opportunity as long as you can, because once that Leona does get a bit tanky, it's gonna be a bit rougher to hook her into your team.
Yeah, with the double ADC setup, they can easily go for the Baron, for example. That's the reason why Lex is botline right now. He has teleport, so they have a lot of damage onto the Baron, and always the pressure with their side lane. So that's definitely a play they could at least try to go for.
Oh, they are going for the Baron. Look at that. Now Skyonage maybe face check on that. Or they have just no clue. They just sneak a Baron.
Now they know, but it is too late, and yeah, they do pick up the Baron, and with that, they're just gonna be able to stop pushing really hard. They already have Lex on the bot lane with that minion wave that's gonna crash into the turret. Reset, maybe find a good fight and get that push going. Might be the play here for Sloths.
Yeah, they can just do like the free waves push, like with both TPs on the side lane. They can just group with two people. It kind of depends whatever they want to do. And I mean, it's probably smooth sailing from here. I mean, it's just 4k, which doesn't sound like a lot, but they just have Baron buff. You know, they get the tier 2 turrets probably on every lane. And maybe even with the Baron buff tier 1 bot lane.
Look at that hook from Grizzn! Nomad hooked straight to his death. There were minions. He doesn't care. He just gets to hook through.
I mean, he saw his opportunity and he took it.
Yeah, and that's the first tier 2 turret down. Now the first tier 1 turret probably goes down to Lex. And just some missed skill shots. After that, they will just rotate to bot lane. I mean, which would make sense just to get bot lane tier 2. I mean, they could try to siege for inhib, but just getting all of those turrets could be the way to go for them to just snowball it cleanly.
I mean, it's very beneficial for them, no? I mean, they get a lot of golds.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's still pretty early in the game.
Man, they played this also really well. You had Lex on the bot lane who kept pushing just one good hook mid lane, and with that, Sloths, with the numerical advantage, can roll over Fullclear. If Fullclear have 5 people, and especially with Nomad, they can still find a way to kind of stop the push of Sloths, but with that, just impossible. I want also to mention, there was a Mark on Gallop's Crux that was there like for ages, and he finally took it down. It started to nag at me here.
Did you feel offended?
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of a... You know, when that Kindred doesn't take the marks, it's kind of saying, I don't need to take those 3 marks. No? It's kind of, no, as a player you should be annoyed too.
I mean, as a Kindred player, you should be annoyed, probably.
Yeah. Tier 2 top lane taken as well. Baron buff still up, and they can already start sieging that inhib turret. They have lags on the mid lane. Yeah, hook.
Now we see with Sky Onage again getting inside, Bekan being taken down, still in the backline we have Lex, who now gets into the scene, being taken down by Nomad, and you just can't fight like that. Nomad is an absolute unit dealing tons of damage, yet still they still go inside. Shredded, now being shredded by the team of Fullclear Esports, and now we see 3 people in the gray screen on the Rift Sloths, which could result actually into a Drake for Fullclear Esports.
Yeah, and with that they get at least some shutdown, some objective bounty, and of course they got some bounties anyway. The winning team fight, and like that was without any problems. I mean, they just bursted down Dukan. After that, they just run down Lex, who tried to insect Nomad, but it didn't work out. And then after that, they just chased down the last 3 members. And after Chrisen hooked someone, Shredded got baited into them, and they just killed him as well. And with that, they kind of threw a big lead away to Fullclear. Lots of shutdowns going to them. They denied the soul point Drake. They just denied the whole Baron push. So that was a wonderful team fight by Fullclear.
And we can see with 5 people, with Nomad in a good position, they can do so much damage to the Rift Sloths. Currently, their main target in a team fight is Nomad. I mean, Maris still does a lot of damage, you cannot underestimate him. But he doesn't have as much farm and kill gold, especially now, as Nomad does. And if they just cannot get to him, which is, well, a bit rougher without too much engage, if that hook goes Ori, he's a bit in a safe space, well, it can go south really quickly.
Yeah, especially with Ashes Tooth on Nomad. The damage increase he just got is just beyond insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the power spike for him to get a really good poke, because with that, his W is now got now the upgrade for 100 AP. And with that, he gets like the big reduce in cooldown if he hits 1 W.
Meantime, Lex on the bot and getting caught here. A lot of damage falling onto him. He tries to save himself with the damage. Is he going to be able to take Mary out of this fight as well? He does not. He gets stunned, and that's a kill. Going to the mid lane of Fullclear Esports with barely a bar of health left.
And I wonder where the whole team of Rift Sloths was there. I mean, 4 people of Fullclear almost was on bot lane, and nobody of Rift was there to help. I mean, and they did not get anything in return, so there was no cross-map play because nothing was up. And Lex just got deleted there. I mean, he traded Flash for Flash, so that's something. But still, it was just a clean catch there by Fullclear.
Yeah, and I wonder, he almost got Mara, but it was just not enough, and overall, he played by Fullclear on a bot lane.
Now what we're seeing here is Gallop being caught. Let's just say caught. First to take down Grizzin. But currently the Rift Sloths are in a pretty comfortable state, I think. I mean, they don't have Grizzin, which is not as cool. Yet still, you can work with Lex and Bekan to maybe take down Nomad and get into an Ashe.
No, I think they even try to start Nash right now.
Yeah,
there's no jungler, so no smite for Gallop, no smite for Fullclear. So it could be still a little bit dangerous if they get engaged, but they can always just turn or just try to go to rush it.
Yeah, look at the pressure. Fullclear Esports is currently being taken out. Look at that. Legs, the 3-man insect. It's insane. And the follow-up, the aftermath, resulting in an ace for the Rift Sloths.
Yeah, that was clean in the end. The catch on Golub didn't make it happen, and then there was like a desperate try to maybe stop the Baron, but I needed to do it in any way because either you lose with the Baron or with at least one last effort. And with that, Sloths will probably finish this first game pretty dominant. There was one small hiccup on the top lane where they got killed a little bit, but in the end it doesn't matter. They just are clean and probably will win this game anytime soon.
Absolutely. With that and without too much trouble left, enemy team Ace, Rift Sloths pick up the first game of this best of 5 here in this juggernaut matchup for the playoffs at Elite Series 2nd Division. Very strong performance of the, well, currently still king of the 2nd Division. And yeah, starting off great in that juggernaut matchup.
Yeah, very dominant first game, I gotta admit.
Yeah, and without any problems, probably. I mean, just look at the game state. I mean, they lost 2 Drakes. I mean, that's something. And they lost 1 team fight, but there wasn't any moment in the game where you could really say, yeah, Rift Sloths lost the game or something, or they Fullclear came back. It was just 2 little hiccups, and in the end, it was still clean enough to just win it in under 30 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. I gotta say, I thought Kindred would have more impact. She wasn't bad, by no means. It wasn't like she had no impact or not enough impact. But I thought after the first situations we had, where Shredded got, I think like 4 kills, I thought he would be more present. Let's say it as that.
I think it's legit. I feel like he had a rough time getting the marks on over the game in the end, and I think maybe that does put some pressure on you of, okay, what am I to do that can throw you off, maybe a bit off game. And you saw that especially in the mid game. They weren't at the top of their game, the Rift Sloths. I think a few misplays did shake their resolution a bit, but in the end they got back into it. I think that's great for them to go on into further games. But I think Fullclear Esports taking a first lose, of course, isn't always nice, but they saw in this game that if they pulled through, they might be able to put a good blow on the Rift Sloths, so that's definitely great for morale.
Yeah, that's true. But let's jump into a small break, I would say. We see you soon, anytime in some minutes, and then we are back with game number 2 in this most important series for both of those teams.